Within my hands I hold my grief, my sorrows and fears which must now cease.
You know you're from Indiana if... Part 2. Being late because of a train? It's actually a good excuse. You actually prefer to drive in the winter, because then the potholes are filled in. You know a lot of people that have hit a deer. You measure distance in minutes, not miles. You really want to put away your winter clothes, but it's just gonna snow again next week. And you can say French lick with a straight face. Y'all Hoosiers, stay tuned for part 3. You know you're from Indiana if... Part 1. If you know of and can play euchre. You don't laugh about taking I-69 to Ball State. You have both a heater and a fan in your room at the same time. It's not soda. It's pop. It's pop. And Bob and Tom, they're household names. Stay tuned for part 2.
Hi guys, and welcome to my new series, All That's Dark in Indiana. This has been something I've had in the works for a long time, and just keep getting distracted and never get up to it. A while back, I was on a live chat with the guys from Paranormal Nightmares, and I believe it was Sean that said that, because he comes to Indiana, they come to Indiana quite regularly to do paranormal investigations, he said that Indiana had a different vibe. And my thought to myself was, well, why? So I started to investigate, and I went into this whole big rabbit hole. And of course, Rochelle and Carla, Rochelle at Amethyst Ascension and Carla at Carla Astrology have some Indiana connections. And they were big in encouraging me into getting off my blind butt and getting this started and, you know, showing what I've got to come up with. And of course, Courtney and Erie's Witchcraft. You know, we were trying to figure out, because to be quite honest with you, I did not know exactly where to start with this because there's so much stuff. I ended up getting waylaid, and there was another video, hopefully that'll be out the next day or two, that is a collaboration with Carla Astrology, and a dear friend of mine asked me to do in collaboration with her. So hopefully today, by tomorrow, I will have that uploaded. So let's get started, shall we? In this series, we're going to talk about paganism, paranormal history, some folklore and things like that. Some pretty famous murder mysteries, at least in my home state at any rate. Paganism, witchcraft, and some pretty dark and despicable things that happened in Indiana since before it even became a state, which was in the 1800s, before the Civil War. You know that term, well, I as a Hoosier, I hear it quite a bit. There's more than corn in Indiana. Well, Indiana has its fair share of dead bodies through disease, murder, mob connections. This is one, not to say that other states don't have that, but just the amount of stuff that has gone on with the history of this state, especially the dark history of this state. And since this is Native American Heritage Month, I'm going to be, after one or two videos, I'm going to be getting into some pretty dark history concerning the Native Americans, such as what happened with the Potawatomi and the Buck Creek Massacre. So here we go, and let's get started. Indiana is home to several very famous musicians, such as Kevin Babyface Edmonds, of course, the Jackson Family, Axl Rose and John Mellencamp, and Richard Hoon of Blind Melon, who was buried not far in the town of Lafayette, not far from where he was born. And of course, Indiana is very famous for its mob connections. But another musical fact about Indiana is that Elvis Presley conducted his last concert 3 months before his death in 1977. And of course, with the mob connections with John Dillinger and Al Capone. Now, of course, Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken was actually born in Indiana. He thought Kentucky Fried Chicken sounded much better than Indiana chicken. And of course, here we are again with Elvis Presley, who was a very famous singer, songwriter, actor. But his last concert was in Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. And his death was August 16th, 1977. Now we're on to famous Teamster Jimmy Hoffa, who disappeared and his body was never found. He was also born in Indiana. And infamous cult leader Charles Manson did live in Indiana as a child and spent time in the Indiana Boys School as well as the Bolt Center. Famous serial killer H.H. Holmes, who in fact killed 3 of the Pitzel children, Alice, Nellie, and Howard. Howard was actually killed in Indiana. They did find remains of his body in a furnace. And of course, Herbert Baumeister, who they have still are finding body parts to this day. He is believed to have killed hundreds of people. And of course, Jim Jones, who was involved in the cult following and mass suicide in the early 70s. So a few more facts about H.H. Holmes. It was believed, I believe the number said 27 people, but I know for a fact it had to be more than that, due to his Hotel of Horrors in Chicago. He was eventually caught and executed in the state of Florida, but they did find that young boy's remains in a furnace. So thanks to the Indianapolis police, the help of the Indianapolis police at that time, but he was hung in the state of Florida. As far as Miss Herbert Baumeister goes, that has some personal significance because he lived behind my grandfather's house, and I remember the police coming. I did live at my grandpa's when I was young, and then my dad lived with him, so I was at the house quite often. I know there was a lot of, sorry about the cats, that land had a lot to do with Native American history. My grandpa had found arrowheads and stuff, and we'd found some. Of course, we returned them to where we found them. But, so there was already something with the land anyway, and after the incident, the police came and they wanted to search, go through his backyard to search the woods behind his house. At the time, there was a very large strip of woods between my grandpa's house and Fox Hollow Farm, and I believe it was Lattimore. I will find my Ghost Experience Challenge video, and I will post it either in my comments or a link in my description box. And once you've watched that video, you can go to that video and click, and I did post some more links and some more information concerning Herbert Baumeister. So you can always, Google these guys and look them up for what information that you would possibly need. So October 31st in Indiana, in 1903, the Purdue football team was on its way to a game, well, Purdue College, and they collided with another train. There was some type of incident with the railing or something to that effect. But 17 people died in that wreck, and I believe one of the coaches, 14 of which was the coach, and I believe the Purdue football players. And then in 1963, the Coliseum, there was a skating event. I believe it was the Ice Capades. And a popcorn machine under the bleachers malfunctioned, and it ignited, and there was an explosion, and 81 people died, and 400 were injured in that. And then several years later, there was a stage collapse, and 7 died at a Dixie Chicks concert due to a tornado. And then when it comes to natural disasters, 81 people died during the blizzard of 78. I was, I think, 5, 6, and I remember that quite well. That was pretty catastrophic. Yeah, white Volkswagen, and we couldn't find it. And then in 1989, an individual decided to place a bomb inside a Colgate pump for toothpaste, and young Erin Bauer, age 5, reached up to grab the toothpaste for her mother at a local Kmart and dropped it. And of course, the toothpaste exploded, and little Erin was permanently injured due to that. And this is a current picture of her now. That's Indiana history. Some pretty... So Indiana had several wars. A lot of different battles go on. So some of these, it's a bit hard to get the numbers of the dead because Indiana did not reach statehood until 1816. And some of these battles were fought prior to that. And I know from looking up some history here with a house that I was interested in the history of. The lady at the Historical Society told me that this town, anything prior to 1850, they did not keep records. So I may go back later on because some of these do pertain to Native American history and such, and try to maybe contact her and see how many people died in these wars. But the Beaver Wars lasted from 1590 to 1701. The Queen Anne's War was from 1702 to 1713. King George's War was 1744 to 1748. So probably the French-American War, French-Indian War, 1754 to 1763. The American Revolutionary War, which was also fought on Indiana soil, there were several battles, 1775 to 1783. The Northeastern Indian Wars was from 1785 to 1795. Tecumseh's War, which would also be the Battle of Tippecanoe, which isn't that far from where I'm at currently. It was 1811 to 1812. Of course, then the War of 1812, and that lasted until 1813. And then the Civil War, which lasted from 1860 to 1865. So I might see today if my youngest, if we can't go and kind of drive by and go and look at some of these graveyards maybe for a future video, because I know several of these are not that far from where we live, and diseases. Of course, as the settlers came, this also did have a major effect on the Native American population. We had an outbreak of smallpox, tuberculosis, bubonic plague, influenza, cholera, polio, as well as scarlet fever. And there's a little story, a little kind of folklore that I had heard about a young girl who died from that. And I believe that, and I can't find it, when it was a blind asylum, I believe that scarlet fever had hit the school. And I know there was a scarlet fever outbreak where I'm currently at. So that's just to start off with on some of the darker aspects of Indiana history. I've worked really hard, even though it doesn't look like it. Thank you to Amethyst Ascension and Carla and Erie's Witchcraft for their encouragement. Hopefully today or tomorrow I will have the next installment up. I'm kind of doing it out of order because just the way things kind of went. I wanted to do this before it got cold. I wanted to start all this at Samhain time, but things just didn't work out that way. So peace, love, and light, guys, and thanks so much for watching.